Tonight, we begin with a development that Social Security analysts, retirement experts, and Washington insiders had feared, tracked, and in some cases quietly prepared for. A shift that unfolded not over decades, but in a single legislative and administrative season. A season that will reshape the monthly checks of over 70 million Americans. A season that will redefine what retirement security means in this country. A season that will force millions of retirees, disabled workers, and surviving spouses to rethink everything they thought they knew about their financial future. What Congress and the Social Security Administration did this year crossed a line that advocacy groups had hoped would hold. And when that line broke, retirees across America did not hesitate. They responded with urgency, with alarm, and with a flood of questions that neither their financial advisors nor their local SSA offices were fully prepared to answer. For years now, there had been signals, not official press releases, not formal legislative announcements, just signals that the Social Security system was preparing something significant. The SSA has been underfunded, yes, but it has been strategic in its underfunding. Its moves have followed a certain rhythm, a pattern, almost a predictable cadence of incremental adjustments. But what set off alarm bells in Washington policy circles this year was that the usual cadence went silent. Policy analysts who monitor entitlement spending know the indicators. The quiet restructuring of SSA internal departments, the budget proposals that trim administrative staff, the actuarial reports projecting trust fund shortfalls ahead of schedule, the sudden acceleration of legislative hearings on Social Security solvency. All of that went quiet. And then, all at once, it went very loud. And whenever the Social Security Administration goes quiet before a major policy cycle, it means something is about to change for the people who depend on it most. Early this year, policy monitors and Congressional Budget Office watchers detected what they described as a convergence of reform pressures, including legislative proposals and administrative rule changes that had not been simultaneously active in over 2 decades. These are the kinds of structural moves that Congress and the SSA only deploy when they are signaling something very specific: cost containment, eligibility restructuring, or benefit recalculation. Observers in the retirement advocacy community didn't know which category this fell into, or whether it fell into all three at once. But what they did know was that the Social Security Administration was changing its posture heading into 2026. And when a federal entitlement program of this scale shifts its policy posture without widespread public explanation, even by a small measure, every retiree in America should pay attention. The alert issued by retirement and financial planning experts this season is not normal. It is not routine. It is not symbolic. It is urgent. Analyst after analyst, financial planner after planner, describe the incoming Social Security changes as sweeping, consequential, and perhaps most importantly, already locked in, meaning millions of Americans will feel these changes whether they are prepared or not. But preparation only works if you act before the changes take effect. Millions of retirees, unfortunately, will not. In fact, the gap between those who understand what is coming and those who do not is among the widest we have seen in a generation of Social Security reform. Here is what we know. Within months of these changes taking effect, retirees who have not adjusted their financial plans will face real reductions in purchasing power, unexpected tax exposure, and in some cases, outright benefit calculation surprises they never saw coming. These aren't minor tweaks. These are structural recalibrations, systemic shifts that the SSA only implements when it is preparing to rebalance the financial architecture of America's most relied-upon retirement program. Tonight, let us confirm and break down the 7 major Social Security changes coming in 2026, and why each one matters. Change number 1. The cost of living adjustment recalibration. The COLA for 2026 is projected to be significantly lower than the inflation-fighting adjustments retirees received in prior years. After the high COLA years driven by post-pandemic inflation, the adjustment for 2026 is expected to land between 2.5% and 3%, a number that sounds reasonable until you factor in that real costs for retirees, particularly in healthcare and housing, continue rising faster than that figure reflects. They adjusted the index, they recalculated the formula, and millions of retirees will receive a smaller real dollar increase than they anticipated. Change number 2, the full retirement age pressure. While the statutory full retirement age is not being raised overnight, the pressure on retirees to claim later and the financial penalties for claiming early are intensifying. Legislative discussions around gradually pushing the FRA toward 67 and eventually 68 are gaining serious momentum, and the benefit reduction percentages for early claiming are being scrutinized in ways they have not been in over a decade. Change number 3, the earnings test threshold update. For retirees who are still working while collecting Social Security before their full retirement age, the earnings test threshold, the amount you can earn before your benefits are temporarily withheld, is being updated in 2026. While this sounds like good news, and in some ways it is, the recalculation of withheld benefits creates cash flow complications that many working retirees are completely unprepared for. Change number 4, the taxable earnings cap increase. The maximum amount of earnings subject to Social Security payroll tax is rising again in 2026. This directly impacts higher income workers who will pay more into the system, but it also reshapes the benefit calculation formula for those same workers down the line, meaning the relationship between what you pay in and what you eventually receive is quietly shifting. Change number 5, the Windfall Elimination Provision and government pension offset reforms. This is the change that millions of public sector retirees, teachers, firefighters, municipal workers have been waiting decades to understand. Legislative efforts to reform or repeal the WEP and GPO provisions are advancing, and the 2026 framework may finally deliver changes that either expand or redefine how government pension recipients interact with their Social Security benefits. This is complicated, it is consequential, and most of the people it affects have no idea it is happening. Change number 6, the Medicare premium and Social Security intersection. Medicare Part B premiums, which are deducted directly from Social Security checks, are projected to increase in 2026. This creates what financial planners call the net benefit squeeze, where your gross Social Security payment goes up slightly due to COLA, but your net payment after Medicare deductions goes down or stays flat. Millions of retirees will open their January 2026 statements and be confused by numbers that don't match what they expected. Change number 7, the trust fund timeline communication shift. Perhaps the most significant and most psychologically impactful change of 2026 is the SSA's updated communication around trust fund solvency. The projected depletion date for the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund has been updated, and the message coming from official channels is no longer as reassuring as it once was. Retirees are being told, with greater clarity than ever before, that without legislative intervention, automatic benefit cuts of roughly 20% could occur within the next decade. That message, delivered at scale, is changing how millions of Americans plan for retirement, and here is where the story becomes even more critical. Policy analysts now believe that the convergence of these 7 changes was not accidental. It was designed, not maliciously, but architecturally, to test the resilience of the Social Security system and the adaptability of its recipients after years of benefit growth. The SSA and Congress wanted to see whether retirees would absorb these changes quietly, whether advocacy organizations would push back forcefully, whether the political cost of reform was lower than the fiscal cost of inaction. And the answer, increasingly, is that the political environment has shifted. Retirement advocates speaking with financial media under anonymity describe the current moment as a controlled recalibration, a way to slowly adjust expectations without triggering the kind of mass political backlash that direct benefit cuts would cause. But informed retirees are proving today that they remain both aware and activated. Their response, through advocacy organizations, through congressional contact campaigns, through financial planning adjustments, was not only organized but targeted so precisely that even lawmakers who thought this would pass quietly are now fielding calls from constituents. That engagement matters because it shows something important. It shows that the retirees of 2026 are not passive recipients. They are active participants in the defense of their own financial security. As reports continued emerging throughout this legislative season, we learned more about the true scale of what is coming. The COLA adjustment alone affects over 70 million Social Security recipients, forcing recalculations across tens of millions of household budgets. The Medicare premium increase targets a population that had already seen healthcare costs rise 6% in the last 12 months. The WEP and GPO reform discussions affect an estimated 3 million public sector workers whose retirement income has been artificially suppressed for decades. This isn't just a benefits adjustment. This isn't just a policy update. This is a structural renegotiation of America's retirement compact. This is a redefinition of what the Social Security promise actually means in the 21st century. And redefining that promise is the one thing the American public has struggled to accept since the program was established in 1935. For every incremental cut that has been proposed, advocates have countered with something that complicates the political calculus. But in 2026, the complexity of the changes is being used as a shield, a way to implement consequential reforms without any single change being large enough to ignite a unified opposition. Remember, lawmakers thought the public wouldn't notice incremental adjustments. They thought retirees were too financially disengaged to track policy changes. They thought the complexity of Social Security rules would serve as a buffer between policy decisions and public outrage. But tonight, and throughout 2026, the exact opposite is happening. Retirees are engaging with their benefit statements in ways they never have before. Financial advisors are fielding more Social Security questions than at any point in the last 15 years. And the political pressure on Congress to either protect benefits or clearly explain the trade-offs has never been more intense. What makes this moment so urgent and so consequential is that these 7 changes are arriving at a time when the average American retiree is already under significant financial pressure. Inflation has eroded purchasing power for 3 consecutive years. Healthcare costs are consuming a larger share of fixed incomes than at any point in the modern era. Housing costs have made downsizing, once a reliable retirement strategy, far more complicated in most major markets. Personal savings rates among pre-retirees are at historic lows, and the traditional 3-legged retirement stool, Social Security, pension, and personal savings, has, for millions of Americans, been reduced to a single leg. When leaders and institutions in that position make sudden policy moves, they are not doing it from a position of strength. They are doing it from pressure. They are doing it from fiscal vulnerability. And the retirees who understand that context are the ones who will navigate 2026 most successfully. The Social Security Administration's official communications, now distributed across digital and print channels, were designed to signal that the agency is not willing to allow the trust fund shortfall to become a crisis without warning. Officials stated plainly that the current trajectory of benefits and revenue is inconsistent with long-term program sustainability. That is bureaucratic language for, we cannot keep paying out at current levels without either more revenue or reduced benefits, and you need to start planning accordingly. You do not usually hear that tone from the SSA unless something serious is at stake. Meanwhile, leading retirement security experts addressed the public in clear, direct terms this season. They said, do not assume your Social Security benefit will look the same in 5 years as it does today. They said, the COLA adjustment, while positive, is not keeping pace with the actual inflation that retirees experience, particularly in healthcare. And they said, the single most important financial planning action any pre-retiree can take right now is to run an updated Social Security claiming strategy analysis before making any decision about when to file. These are not rhetorical suggestions. These are statements from professionals who understand just how high the stakes have become for the millions of Americans who will rely on Social Security as their primary source of income in retirement. Here is what makes the situation even more concerning. These 7 changes are not isolated. Along with the primary benefit and structural adjustments, state-level pension systems are also under pressure, meaning public sector retirees face a double exposure. Medicare Advantage plan changes are reshaping the healthcare cost structure for millions of Social Security recipients. The federal budget debate has increased pressure to use Social Security reform as a fiscal offset, meaning additional changes beyond these 7 are actively being discussed. All of this is happening within the same policy window. When a government system moves multiple pieces at once, it means something larger is underway, a fundamental reassessment of the social contract around retirement in America. Analysts are now considering several possibilities for where this leads. One is that Congress acts before the trust fund depletion date and enacts a comprehensive solvency package that protects current beneficiaries while gradually adjusting benefits for future retirees. Another is that Congress continues to delay, allowing the 2026 changes to serve as the first wave of what becomes a decade-long erosion of benefits. A third possibility, the one worrying retirement advocates the most, is that the complexity and gradualism of these changes means that millions of Americans will not realize what has happened to their retirement security until it is too late to adjust. But today, informed retirees and their advocates are working to take that third option off the table. They are not waiting for a crisis. They are not assuming the government will protect them automatically. They are not ignoring the signals. They are planning, adjusting, and advocating. Now, while there is still time. What we are watching now is a test of institutional integrity. The SSA wants to demonstrate that it can manage a solvency challenge without catastrophic disruption. Retirees want to show that they will not accept silent benefit erosion without accountability. Congress wants to prevent a political crisis around entitlements ahead of the next election cycle. And retirement advocates want to prevent a quiet generational betrayal from becoming permanent policy. Tonight, financial planners and Social Security strategists are urging immediate action on several fronts. They say retirees should request an updated Social Security statement from SSA Gov immediately to verify their projected benefit amounts before the 2026 changes take effect. They say anyone within 5 years of claiming age should run a detailed claiming strategy analysis that accounts for the new COLA projections, the Medicare premium trajectory, and the updated trust fund timeline. And they say that understanding whether you are affected by the WEP or GPO provisions, or the new earnings test thresholds, could be worth thousands of dollars annually in optimized benefits. The response required from every American retiree and pre-retiree today must be proactive, informed, and urgent. Their action now, planned, strategic, and immediate, sends a message to policymakers that the American retiree is paying attention, and it sends a message to every financial advisor in this country that their clients need Social Security guidance more urgently than at any point in the last 20 years. As 2026 approaches, we expect more details to emerge about exactly what each of these 7 changes will mean for individual beneficiaries. But what we do know is that the alert being sounded now is timely. It gives retirees the opportunity to adjust their financial plans before the changes hit. It gives advocates the window to push for legislative protections before the policy window closes. And it gives every American who depends on Social Security the information they need to face 2026, not with fear, but with preparation. What happens next will depend on what Congress does in the next 12 to 24 months. If they act with urgency and integrity, this moment will be remembered as the turning point when Social Security's long-term solvency was finally secured. If they delay, retirees and advocates have already shown they are organized, engaged, and ready to respond. And tonight, for the first time in a generation, the Social Security system itself appears to be at a crossroads. Washington is watching, Wall Street is watching, and 70 million Americans who depend on that monthly check are watching more closely than ever before. And when the system is this quiet about what comes next, it means the decisions being made right now, in committee rooms, in actuarial offices, in congressional budget negotiations, are choosing the future of American retirement. Because tonight, retirees across this country are learning something that some have known for years, and others are discovering for the first time. Social Security is not automatic. It is not guaranteed in its current form forever. And the difference between a secure retirement and a struggling one may come down to whether you paid attention in 2026. This story is far from over. But tonight, one thing is clear. The 7 changes coming in 2026 are real. They are significant, and they are arriving whether you are ready or not. The window to prepare is open, but it will not stay open forever. And we will be here, watching every detail as the next phase of America's retirement security story unfolds.